Maya had only been in Cedar Ridge for 3 weeks, but it already felt like a lifetime. Back in San Diego, she knew every shortcut to school, every teacher's pet peeve, and which lunch table to avoid on pizza day. Here, everything was different. The air smelled like salt and pine, the kids spoke slower, and no one seemed to know what to make of her. She wasn't trying to stand out. All she wanted was to blend in, finish high school without drama, and maybe make one real friend. But being the only black girl on the cheerleading squad made blending in kind of impossible. Still, she showed up. Every morning before sunrise, she stretched in her room while her mom made coffee in the kitchen. Every afternoon, she ran drills in the school gym even when no one else was there. She wasn't the loudest or flashiest, but she was precise. Her jumps were clean, her motions sharp, and her spirit. Quiet but steady, the squad had accepted her. Technically. They let her wear the uniform, learn the routines, and sit with them at lunch, though usually at the end of the table where the conversation never quite reached her. The team captain, a girl with perfectly curled hair and a voice that carried like a megaphone, always smiled at her in that way that wasn't quite friendly, more like polite. The kind of smile you give someone you're tolerating. Maya told herself it was fine. She'd been the new kid before. She knew how this went. Give it time. Be patient. Don't react. Her dad had taught her that. Stay calm. Do your job. Let your actions speak. He was still overseas, somewhere hot and far away, doing work he couldn't talk about. She hadn't seen him in 8 months. Their calls were short, full of static and silence. But he always ended with, "Be proud of who you are. Maya, never shrink yourself for anyone." She held on to that. Tryouts for the homecoming routine were coming up, and Maya practiced harder than ever. She stayed late after school, repeating the pyramid sequence until her arms shook. She watched videos of national champions, studied their timing, their energy. She wasn't trying to beat anyone, just to be her best. When the coach posted the final lineup, Maya's name was at the top. She'd been chosen to lead the opening stunt, a high basket toss that required perfect trust between flyers and bases. It was a huge honor, especially for a new girl. The room went quiet when the list went up. You could feel the shift in the air like a storm rolling in. The captain's smile vanished. She didn't say anything, just turned and walked out, her sneakers squeaking hard against the gym floor. After that, little things started happening. Her water bottle accidentally knocked over in the locker room. Her name left off group texts about practice, whispers in the hallway that stopped the second she got close. Once, someone wrote, "Go back where you came from" on her locker in dry erase marker. She wiped it off without a word and kept walking. She didn't tell her mom, didn't want to worry her. Her mom was already working double shifts at the clinic, trying to get settled in this new town. Maya figured she could handle it. She always had. But then came Friday. It was the last practice before homecoming weekend. The gym buzzed with excitement, music blasting, girls laughing, pom-poms flying. Maya focused on her routine, running through the moves in her head. She didn't notice the captain watching her from across the room, arms crossed, jaw tight after practice. While most of the team rushed off to a pregame party, Maya stayed behind to pick up stray water bottles and fold mats. She liked leaving the space clean. It felt like respect. By the time she stepped outside, the sun was low, painting the football field in gold and shadow. The parking lot was nearly empty. That's when she saw them, 3 girls standing near the bleachers blocking her path home. She slowed her steps but didn't stop. Maybe they just wanted to talk. Maybe it was nothing. But then the captain stepped forward. "Think you're something special now, huh?" she said, voice low and sharp. "Just because coach picked you over me?" Maya kept her voice even. "I didn't ask for it. I just did what I was told." "Yeah, well, maybe you should have stayed in your lane," another girl sneered. Before Maya could respond, someone shoved her shoulder hard. She stumbled back, catching herself on the chain-link fence. Her heart pounded, but she stood tall. "Don't," she said quietly. That only made them angrier. They closed in. Words came fast. Ugly words. Old words. Words that cut deeper than fists ever could. They called her names she hadn't heard since middle school. One grabbed her ponytail and yanked. Another tore at her cheer top, popping a seam at the shoulder. Someone laughed. Maya didn't cry, didn't scream. She locked her eyes on the ground, breathing slow like her dad taught her. Control what you can. Your breath, your mind, your dignity. A few yards away, a freshman boy on his bike froze, phone in hand. He didn't step in, but he didn't look away either. He hit record. After what felt like forever, they finally backed off, tossing her water bottle into the grass like trash. "Enjoy your spotlight," the captain spat. "Hope it's worth it." They walked off, laughing like it was all a joke. Maya stood there for a long time, trembling but upright. She smoothed her torn uniform, picked up her bag, and walked home, head high, step steady. When she got inside, her mom was at the kitchen table, grading papers. She looked up, smiled, then froze. "Maya, what happened?" Maya almost lied, almost said she tripped. But the words caught in her throat. Instead, she just held out her torn sleeve. Her mom's face changed, not with panic, but with something deeper. A quiet fury mixed with fear. She pulled Maya into a hug, tight and long. "We're going to the school first thing Monday," she said. "This stops now," Maya nodded, exhausted. But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, one thought kept circling. Dad would have known what to do. She didn't know it yet, but he was already on his way home. Monday morning came in, gray and heavy. Like the sky itself was holding its breath. Maya stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, smoothing down her hair, adjusting the safety pin holding her cheer top together. She didn't want to go to school, but she wouldn't hide either. Her mom had already called the principal, demanding a meeting. "This isn't just bullying," she'd said firmly over the phone. "It's assault." At school, whispers followed Maya like shadows. Some kids looked away when she passed. Others stared openly. A few gave her small, awkward nods, maybe sympathy, maybe guilt. She kept her eyes forward, backpack snug on her shoulders, heart thumping like a drum in her chest. The principal's office smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. Her mom sat beside her, hands folded, calm but firm. Across the desk, the principal, a man with tired eyes and a too-tight tie, spoke in careful, measured words. He said he deeply regretted the incident, called it unacceptable, and promised a thorough review. But when Maya's mom asked what would actually happen to the girls, his tone shifted. "These are good kids," he said gently. "They come from strong families." I'm sure it was a moment of poor judgment, not malice. Maya's stomach dropped. Not malice? She remembered the laughter, the tearing fabric, the words that still echoed in her dreams. Her mom leaned forward. "So what's the consequence?" The principal sighed. "They'll meet with the counselor, write reflections, and they'll be asked to apologize." "That's it?" her mom asked, voice tight. He cleared his throat. "Given the circumstances and the lack of physical injury, we're treating this as a disciplinary matter, not a legal one." Maya looked down at her hands. No bruises meant no proof, apparently. Never mind the fear, the shame, the way she'd checked every hallway before walking down it. Never mind that she hadn't slept through the night since Friday. Back in class, things got worse. The captain and her friends acted like nothing happened. They laughed loudly in the cafeteria, took selfies during study hall, and when Maya walked by, they'd exchange glances, smirks hidden behind hands. One even mimed tearing a shirt, then burst into giggles. But something else was happening too. That freshman boy, the one with the bike, he'd posted the video. Not on his main account, but anonymously on a local community page. Just 45 seconds, shaky footage, muffled voices, but clear enough to see Maya being shoved, her top ripped, her standing there silent while they circled her like wolves. By lunchtime, half the school had seen it. At first, people didn't know what to do. But then a girl from the debate team shared it with a caption. "This happened at our school, and the administration is doing nothing." Comments poured in. Parents were furious. Former students chimed in with their own stories of being ignored when they spoke up. A local news blogger picked it up. Cedar Ridge High under fire after racial bullying incident. Suddenly, the story wasn't just Maya's anymore. It was everyone's. The principal called an emergency assembly on Wednesday. He stood on stage, flanked by teachers, and spoke about community values and respect. He didn't mention Maya by name, didn't show the video, didn't say what would change. Just vague promises about doing better. But Maya noticed something. For the first time, people were looking at her, not with pity, but with something like respect. A boy in her chemistry class slipped her a note. "You're brave. I wish I'd helped." A teacher stayed after class to say, "If you ever need a safe place, my door is open." Still, the captain's group acted like they were untouchable. They even showed up to cheer practice like nothing was wrong. When Maya walked in, the captain crossed her arms. "You really had to go crying online?" she muttered, just loud enough for others to hear. Drama queen. Maya didn't respond. She just laced up her shoes, stretched her arms, and took her spot on the mat. She wasn't there to fight. She was there to do her job. But that night something shifted at home. Her mom was on the phone, voice low but intense. Yes, I understand he's still on leave. But if he's back in the country, I think it's time. A pause. Then softer. She's holding up, but she shouldn't have to carry this alone. Maya stood in the hallway listening. Her dad? Was he coming home? She hadn't let herself hope. His missions were unpredictable. Sometimes he'd be gone for a year, sometimes longer. Calls were rare, letters even rarer. But she remembered his voice, rough but warm, telling her bedtime stories over satellite phone when she was little. You've got steel in your spine, he'd say. Don't let anyone bend it. Later that night, her mom came into her room. She sat on the edge of the bed, quiet for a long moment. Your dad's flight lands tomorrow, she finally said. He heard what happened. He's coming straight here. Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to feel relief, but fear crept in too. What if he was angry? What if he made things worse? She didn't want a scene. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted to feel safe again. He's not coming to fight anyone, her mom said, as if reading her mind. He's coming because you're his daughter. And he loves you. Maya nodded, tears finally spilling over. She hadn't cried since Friday, not really. But now, with the thought of her dad walking through that door, the weight she'd been carrying cracked open. The next morning, she went to school like always. But something felt different. Maybe it was knowing help was coming. Maybe it was seeing more kids nod at her in the hall. Or hearing someone shut down a joke about that cheerleader drama. Maybe it was just the quiet certainty that she hadn't been wrong to speak up. After school, she walked home slowly, watching the sun dip behind the pines. She didn't look over her shoulder. Not today, because today, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. The front door clicked open just after 6. Maya was at the kitchen table stirring cold cereal she hadn't really eaten when she heard it. The sound she hadn't heard in over half a year. Heavy boots on the tile, a deep breath, then silence. She didn't turn around right away. She was scared that if she did, it wouldn't be real, that she'd imagined it. But then a voice, rough but soft, said, "Hey, baby girl." Her spoon clattered into the bowl. She spun around, and there he was, taller than she remembered, leaner, with tired eyes and a short beard streaked with gray. But it was him. Same steady gaze, same way of standing like the ground couldn't shake him. She ran to him before she even thought about it. He caught her in a hug so tight she could feel his heartbeat, slow, strong, like a drum under armor. He didn't say much, just held her. And for the first time since Friday, Maya felt like she could breathe. Later, over reheated soup, her mom told him everything. The attack, the school's weak response, the video, the whispers. He listened without interrupting, his hands wrapped around his mug, face unreadable. When she finished, he looked at Maya. You did the right thing, he said simply. You stood your ground. That takes more courage than most people ever learn. She nodded, eyes burning again, but she didn't cry. Not with him here. The next morning, he wore a plain black polo and jeans. No uniform, no insignia. Nothing to show who he really was. But the way he moved told its own story. Quiet, precise, like every step had a purpose. He walked Maya to school, not saying much, just staying close. Kids noticed. Whispers started before they even reached the gate. At the office, he asked to speak with the principal. Alone. Maya waited outside with her mom, twisting the strap of her backpack. 20 minutes later, he came out. His expression hadn't changed, but his jaw was set. He's calling a meeting, he said. Today, with the families involved, the coach, the school board rep, and he's agreed to review the video. On record. Maya's mom exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. That afternoon, they returned. The conference room was small, with folding chairs and a whiteboard still marked with last week's lunch menu. The principal sat at the head of the table. The coach fidgeted with her pen. And then they came in, the 3 girls flanked by their parents. The captain's father wore a suit and smelled like expensive cologne. He nodded at Maya's dad like they were old friends, all charm and handshakes. But Maya's dad didn't smile. He just sat down, placed a printed copy of the video timestamp on the table and said, "Let's be clear about what happened." He didn't yell. Didn't threaten. He spoke calmly, like he was briefing a team before a mission. He laid out the facts, the racial slurs, the physical contact, the tearing of clothing, the public humiliation. He pointed out that the school's initial response violated both district policy and state anti-bullying laws. Then he said something that made the room go still. My daughter didn't ask for special treatment. She asked for fairness, and she didn't get it. The captain's dad tried to smooth things over. Kids make mistakes, he said, waving a hand. It was just a prank gone wrong. Maya's dad looked at him, eyes sharp but calm. If your daughter came home with her clothes torn and fear in her eyes, would you call it a prank? The man opened his mouth, then closed it. The principal cleared his throat. We're taking this very seriously now, he said quickly. Disciplinary action will be updated, and we'll launch a full review of our conduct policies. Maya's dad nodded. Good, but action isn't enough. Prevention is better. I'd like to volunteer. Speak to the student body about respect, accountability, and what real strength looks like. Not the kind that pushes people down. The kind that lifts them up. No one argued. After the meeting, as they walked out, Maya finally asked the question that had been stuck in her chest. Were you mad? He looked down at her, sunlight catching the lines around his eyes. I was proud, he said. You didn't run. You didn't lie. You told the truth even when it was hard. That's the hardest kind of brave. That night, the local news ran a short piece. Cedar Ridge High revises bullying response after community outcry. They didn't name Maya, but they showed the school's new pledge, signed by staff and students to create a safer, more inclusive environment. At dinner, her dad asked about cheer practice. Are you still going? Yeah, she said. I need to, he nodded. Good. Don't let them take your joy. The next day at school, everything felt different. The captain and her friends were pulled from the squad, officially for conduct unbecoming of team representatives. They still came to school, but kept to themselves. No more smirks. No more whispers. And when Maya walked into the gym for practice, the remaining squad members stood up. Not all of them, some still looked away, but most. One girl stepped forward and handed her a brand new cheer top. Same color, same size. We got you a replacement, she said quietly, and we're sorry we didn't say anything sooner. Maya took it. Didn't say it's okay because it wasn't. Not yet. But she said thank you, and that was enough. Her dad didn't stay in town long. He had to report back soon, but before he left, he visited the school one last time. Not in uniform, just as a parent. He spoke to the entire student body in the auditorium. He didn't talk about war or weapons. He talked about listening, about seeing people, not just their skin, their clothes, or where they're from, but their heart. Real courage, he said, is choosing kindness when it's easier to be cruel. It's standing up when everyone else sits down. Afterward, kids lined up to shake his hand. Some asked for advice. Others just said thank you. Maya watched from the back, arms crossed, heart full. She knew things wouldn't change overnight. Cedar Ridge wasn't suddenly perfect, but something had shifted. Like a door that had been stuck for years finally creaked open, and this time, she wasn't walking through it alone. The homecoming game arrived under a sky full of stars and a crisp autumn breeze. The stands were packed. Parents, students, even folks from the next town over. Cedar Ridge hadn't had this much buzz in years, but tonight wasn't just about football. It was about something quieter, deeper, healing. Maya stood in the locker room with the rest of the squad, lacing up her sneakers. Her new uniform fit perfectly, bright, crisp, and whole. No rips, no safety pins, just clean fabric and fresh starts. She took a deep breath, rolling her shoulders like her dad had taught her before big moments. Nerves are just energy, he'd said. Put it to work. Out on the field, the crowd roared as the team ran out. The cheerleaders took their places at the 50-yard line. Maya's heart pounded, but not from fear, from purpose. This was her moment, not because she'd been chosen over someone else, but because she'd earned it by showing up even when it hurt. The music kicked in. The first stunt began, and when it was her turn to be lifted, high above the ground, arms outstretched like wings, the crowd fell silent for just a second. Then erupted, not in cheers for the move, but for her. People stood, some clapped. Others shouted her name. A group of younger students held up a handmade sign, "We see you." Tears pricked her eyes, but she held her smile steady, landed clean, and kept going. After the routine, A girl from the student council handed her a water bottle. "You killed it," she whispered. Maya just nodded, throat too tight to speak. Back at school the next week, things kept changing, not in big dramatic ways, but in small, real ones. The lunchroom felt less divided. Kids from different groups started sitting together. Teachers began opening class with quick check-ins. "How's everyone really doing today?" And then came the announcement. The school was launching a new peer-led group called the Unity Council. Its job? To listen, to mediate, to make sure no one felt invisible. Maya didn't plan to join. She'd had enough of being in the spotlight, but the coach pulled her aside. "You don't have to lead," she said gently. "But your voice matters. Maybe more than anyone else's right now." So Maya signed up. At the first meeting, 8 students showed up. Some she knew, some she didn't. They sat in a circle in the library after school, sunlight slanting through the windows. No one knew exactly what to say at first. Then a quiet boy spoke up. "Last year I got called names for being quiet." Everyone laughed. No one stopped it. Another girl added, "I transferred here from another country. For months kids mocked my accent. I stopped raising my hand in class." Maya listened. Then she shared her story, not for pity, but so they'd know they weren't alone. When she finished, the room was still. Then one by one, hands reached out. Not to fix it, just to say, "We hear you." Meanwhile, the school rolled out mandatory workshops on bias, empathy, and bystander intervention. Maya's dad, though back on duty, had recorded a short video message that played during the first session. He didn't talk about rank or medals. He talked about the time he was the only one in his unit who looked like him, and how the respect he earned wasn't from proving he was tougher, but from showing he cared. Even the captain's group wasn't forgotten. They weren't punished forever. Instead, they were required to attend the workshops and complete community service hours with the local youth center. At first, they dragged their feet, but slowly something shifted. One afternoon, the captain showed up at the Unity Council meeting, not to join, just to listen. She sat in the back, arms crossed, but she stayed the whole time. A few days later, she waited for Maya after practice. The parking lot was empty except for them. Maya tensed, but the girl didn't smirk or sneer. She just stood there, twisting the strap of her bag. "I saw the video again," she finally said, voice low. I didn't realize how bad it looked. How bad it was." Maya didn't say anything. She just waited. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," the girl continued, "but I'm sorry. Really sorry." Maya studied her face. There was no performance in it, just shame and maybe the start of something better. "Okay," Maya said simply. "I hear you. It wasn't friendship. Not yet, maybe not ever. But it was honesty. And that was a start." As weeks passed, Maya found herself smiling more. Not the polite, careful smile she used to wear, but real ones. When a teammate nailed a new stunt, when her little cousin called to tell her about her own school play, when her mom made her favorite pancakes on a random Tuesday. She still thought about that Friday near the bleachers. But now it didn't feel like the end of her story. It felt like the moment everything began to change. One evening, she sat on the porch with her mom, watching fireflies blink in the yard. "Do you think things will stay this way?" she asked. Her mom sipped her tea. "Change takes work," she said. "But you showed people what's possible." "That's powerful," Maya nodded. She wasn't naive. She knew the world wasn't suddenly fair. But she also knew something else now. Courage isn't just about facing bullies. It's about building something better in their place, and that was a routine she was ready to lead. By spring, the air in Cedar Ridge smelled like blooming jasmine and wet grass after rain. The school year was winding down, but the changes Maya had helped start were just beginning to take root. The Unity Council now met twice a week, and kids actually showed up, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They planned mixers, organized a kindness week, and even started a suggestion box that the principal actually read. Maya still cheered, but she wasn't just the girl who got attacked anymore. She was the one who helped organize the school's first cultural showcase, where students shared food, music, and stories from their families' backgrounds. She wasn't the loudest speaker, but when she talked, people listened because they knew she'd been through fire and come out steady. One afternoon, as she pinned up flyers for an upcoming event, the captain walked by. They hadn't spoken much since that quiet apology months ago, but things weren't tense anymore. Just careful. Today the girl paused. "Need help with those?" she asked, nodding at the stack in Maya's arms. Maya blinked, then handed her half the pile. They worked in silence for a few minutes, taping posters to bulletin boards side by side. Then the girl said, "My little sister saw you at the showcase. She said you made her feel like it was okay to be proud of where we're from." She gave a small, almost shy smile. "Thanks for that." Maya just nodded. "Tell her I said hi. It wasn't a grand moment. No dramatic handshake or tearful reunion. But it was real. And sometimes real is enough." At home, life settled into a new rhythm. Her dad was still away most of the time, but their calls were longer now. He'd ask about the council, her classes, even her favorite smoothie order. And she'd tell him everything, not just the big stuff, but the little wins too. Like the day a freshman thanked her for speaking up in class about a racist comment, or how the lunchroom now had a new friends table for anyone eating alone. He never said, "I told you so." He just said, "Keep going. The world needs people like you." Graduation wasn't for another year, but Maya was already thinking ahead. She'd started researching colleges, not just for their cheer programs, but for their social justice clubs, their community outreach, their values. She wanted to go somewhere she could keep building, keep lifting others the way someone had finally lifted her. One Saturday morning, she volunteered at the youth center, where the captain and her friends had done their service hours. Maya helped kids with homework, played board games, and even taught a few basic cheer moves during free time. A little girl with braids and bright eyes tugged her sleeve. "Can I be like you when I grow up?" she asked. Maya knelt down. "You can be even better," she said gently. "Just be kind. And never let anyone make you feel small." Later, as she walked home, she passed the football field. The bleachers were empty, the grass freshly cut. She stopped for a moment, looking at the spot near the fence where it all happened. It didn't scare her anymore. If anything, it felt like sacred ground, a place where something broken had started to heal. Back at school, the principal announced that Cedar Ridge would receive a state award for excellence in student-led inclusion initiatives. At the ceremony, Maya was asked to say a few words. She stood at the podium, heart racing, but she didn't read from notes. She just spoke from her heart. "I used to think standing up meant fighting back," she said, voice clear and calm. "But I've learned that real strength is creating space. Space for people to be seen, to be heard, to belong. That's what this council is about. That's what this school is becoming." Afterward, teachers hugged her. Students clapped her on the back. Even the school board member who'd once called the incident a misunderstanding shook her hand and said, "You've changed this place." But the best moment came later, in the hallway. A group of 8th graders, kids who'd just been accepted into Cedar Ridge for next year, stopped her. "We heard about what you did," one said. "We're glad we get to go to your school." Maya smiled. "Me too." As the school year ended, the squad held a small celebration at the park. No trophies, no fancy speeches, just pizza, music, and laughter. Maya sat on a blanket watching fireflies blink in the dusk. One of her teammates handed her a soda. "You coming back next year as captain?" she asked. Maya shrugged. "Maybe, but honestly, I just want to keep doing the work, on the squad, in the council, wherever it's needed." Her teammate grinned. "Good, 'cause we're not doing any of this without you." That night, Maya sat on her porch again, journal open in her lap. She wasn't writing about pain anymore. She was writing about hope, about the girl who found her voice, the school that learned to listen, and the quiet truth that change doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it starts with one person refusing to stay silent. She closed the journal and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, her dad was watching the same sky. She didn't know when she'd see him next, but she didn't feel alone, because now she carried his lessons in her bones and she was passing them on. Cedar Ridge wasn't perfect, but it was trying, and Maya, she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was leading, not with anger, not with force, but with steady, quiet courage that rippled farther than she'd ever imagined. And that, she knew, was the real victory.